Hello again, I'm Robert Fitton, and welcome to part 2 of my I Got the Blues video, where I talk about just some blues records that I have recently acquired. Just a reminder, in case you missed part 1 or forgot, this is not like a definitive blues albums list or my favorite. These are just ones that I've acquired recently, found out in the wild, and just have been saving them up for this one particular video, just because I wanted to make a video all about great blues records. That my recent findings include Lightning Hopkins. As we continue, is it lightning or lightnin'? I guess it depends on what album you have. But I was fortunate enough to find these two. This one is early recordings on the wonderful Arhoolie label, and yeah, this is a pretty generous offering here. 16 songs on this one. In the typical Lightning Hopkins fashion, a very intimate sound to them. He sounds like he is just either playing in a room just to you and maybe a couple of other people, or maybe you're eavesdropping on him, playing just to himself. But yeah, very intimate, kind of mellow kind of style, even though there's a lot going on with the guitar work. Sort of the opposite of the last album I showed in part 1 from Big Joe Williams, Blues on Highway 49. This one was, he's definitely belting them out and singing to the whole room, and this is sort of the opposite effect of that with Lightning Hopkins, but definitely a legendary blues guy. And early recordings is, like I said, it's very generous, 16 tracks on here, but it is more of a historical document. I definitely prefer this album. This is great. Blues in My Bottle on the old Prestige Bluesville label. Got an original pressing of this. Was really glad to find this again in a very intimate Lightning Hopkins style. Blues in My Bottle features some great tunes on here, and it's a weird stereo mix. Of course, this is from the 60s, so it is recorded in stereo. He's more on one channel, and the guitar is on the other. His guitar sounds a little bit distorted. I don't think it sounds like that on all his releases. I don't think that's like a style or anything. I think it's just a way it was recorded. It kind of sounds like your speaker is in a loose box or something, and it's vibrating. But great songs on here. The first track, Buddy Brown's Blues, where he wants to be like Buddy Brown, who just kind of sits around and does whatever he wants. I don't think he really has much going on, but just gets up in the morning, has his breakfast, and goes back to bed or whatever. It's got a line in that song about when men get hairy, they have to shave, and when a woman gets musty, she has to bathe. It just reminds me of that Richard Pryor routine where he's talking about The Exorcist. It's like, girl, you've been laying in that bed for weeks. Get up, wash your ass. But yeah, Lightning Hopkins, a great way to start off that album. He's got a great sense of humor, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out through this the little touches in this album as well. Second song is Wine Spodioti. Of course, the classic blues song that's been covered many, many times. If you know the history of that song, when it's done live in the early days, and I'm talking like the 20s and 30s, it was drinking wine, motherfucker, drinking wine, and the whole audience would get into it. Obviously, they could not record and release something like that, widely. I mean, there are old blues songs that are extremely raunchy. Just ask Lucille Bogan, but a lot of those were not actually released, or they were, kind of underground. But his Wine Spodioti, no matter how it's sung, with whatever lyrics, is usually a big festive song, and it gets everybody going. Everybody's drinking wine. His version of it just kind of, again, it's a very mellow, very intimate version, where he just kind of sounds like he's just having some wine with a couple of friends, and we're just drinking wine, Spodioti, drinking wine. That kind of thing. So he has his own take on things. It's great. He definitely has his own take on lifestyle on this album as well. I noticed that he gets away from the typical old blues guy on here singing about being poor and being broke and being, just you're trying to get through life day by day. He's got a song on here about flying in the DC-7 and trying to get up close to heaven, and he's flying in an airplane over New York City and all that kind of stuff. He's got another song on here about going off to Dallas to see his pony run, and his horse always wins. So this guy is owning horses. This man is flying in airplanes, DC-7s, and so he's definitely got a kind of a different lifestyle he's singing about than a lot of the blues guys. But a great album from Lightning Hopkins. This has quickly become one of my favorite blues albums, and I love his different approach. I love his intimate style. His guitar playing is stellar, and there's a reason, obviously, that he is a blues legend. So a lot of great songs on here. The album ends with My Grandpa's Old 2. It is a sentimental song. It is a great song about his grandfather, who is obviously very old and kind of getting forgetful. He wonders where his pipe is, when it's in his mouth, and he lets you know that, his grandpa might be getting old, but he loves his grandpa, and if you mess with his grandpa, you're messing with him. So just beware. Lightning Hopkins, Blues in My Bottle. Now, ever since I got the Coco Taylor album, I've got What It Takes for Record Store Day last year. I only got 2 Record Store Day albums last year, and Coco Taylor was one of them. The Rolling Stones Beggar's Banquet on the swirling gray and black and white vinyl was the other. But I got that Coco Taylor and was blown away. I'd always heard the name Coco Taylor. I figured, yeah, she's a blues singer, Chicago blues. But what 5-star album. And if you do not have that album or have not heard that album, definitely check that album out if you like blues, gutsy, women singing the blues. The Coco Taylor, I've got What It Takes. She absolutely does. Every single song on there is stellar. And she is quite the vocalist. And as soon as I heard that album, I'm like, okay, well, obviously, I got to get some more Coco Taylor. And lucky enough, I was able to do that recently. I've got From the Heart of a Woman. This is from 1981. And live from Chicago, an audience with the Queen from, I believe, 1987. Now, these are a little bit later. The album I was talking about, the Record Store Day one, is from 1975. So that is just prime. These are great. Not prime like, the one I was talking about, but these are great as well. This one from 81 has a little bit more of a disco sound on some of the songs. They're coming off the disco era, so they get away from that kind of gut-wrenching, just blues belted out, and it kind of smoothing things out a little bit. Even some clip cymbals in there, pss, 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 just discoing it out. But especially side 1. Side 2 is more traditional blues on here, but there's a lot of great stuff on here. And she's always getting cheated on. Something strange going on in my house starts it off. And, songs like, I Never Trust a Man, lessons to be learned from the great Coco Taylor here. She does the I'd Rather Go Blind that was made famous by Etta James. She's got her version on there, just as good as the Etta James version, in my opinion. I don't know if that's controversial to say, but this is on the Great Alligator label, as was the Record Store Day one. I've got What It Takes, and also the live one, all on the Alligator label. And they've got that Alligator label, I don't know, it's the sound. You know what I'm talking about? When they have that, my favorite kind of blues sound is that sound where it doesn't matter if it's a live album or studio album, it sounds live and immediate and just completely unfiltered, unmessed with, uncompressed. It just sounds so vivid. Everything is crystal clear, and this album is no exception. If you had your choice between the 3, I would definitely go with the I've Got What It Takes album first, but if you're like me, you got that one, you love it, you want a little more, this one will not disappoint. 4-star album from Coco Taylor, and this live one, she gets going pretty good. Now, this is obviously later. She's getting older. It's 1987. It's got that kind of vibe to it. Again, a little bit more smoothed out, a little less raw and gutsy, a little more, kind of laying it down a little smoother. She's going to let the good times roll, song 1. Somewhere along these blues concerts, somebody's going to do that good times roll song. No, not the Cars song, the other one. Good times roll. Jimi Hendrix again, I think, he did that. Band of Gypsies, I believe, was when he did that. But, and then I'm a Woman. Again, not the Peggy Lee I'm a Woman, but she takes the mannish boy, when I'm a woman, makes it her own. Going back to Iuka, then, I think that's the 3rd song on here. All of a sudden you get this incredible electric rock guitar, which I was not expecting from a Coco Taylor album. But yeah, nice rock guitar on there. So yeah, that really fills out the sound a lot. Great to hear that. She's got Come to Mama, just like I'm a Woman. She does her own thing with Come to Papa, the Willie Mitchell song, which, to me was a Bob Seger song. Night Moves, one of the first albums I ever heard. Heard that when I was 3 years old on 8-track over and over again. So it just played over and over again until somebody else who was allowed to touch the stereo could take the 8-track out. So yeah, she's Come to Mama, which the Bob Seger one is actually a little more rockin' and raunchy sounding than hers is. Again, a little bit smoothed out when we get to 1987 with Coco Taylor. Rather Go Blind is also on this album, just like the other album, and Wang Dang Doodle, which I'm assuming has become her signature tune. That's when you say Coco Taylor to most people, if they know anything about her, it's a Wang Dang Doodle, and she closes the album with that Willie Dixon song. So, yeah, Coco Taylor live from Chicago. This is great as well. This is great too. Glad I picked these up recently, and I will definitely be searching for more Coco Taylor. I've got to get her 2 albums on Chess. I think that's really where it's at. The first 2 that are before the I've Got What It Takes album. I got to get my hands on those. But for right now, if you don't have any Coco Taylor, the I've Got What It Takes album from 1975. And the Record Store Day version of that, and the red vinyl looking really good, it's still not expensive. They're not able to flip that, for 3 times the value. It's still, a $20 album. So yeah, be sure to pick that up. So at this point, the records I've been talking about in this video and also in part 1 have been original pressings, and I was lucky enough to find those. But of course, I guess original pressings don't really matter that much when it's compilations of 78s, like with the Robert Johnson and a couple of others, like the Howlin' Wolf and whatever. But yeah, this I'm going to talk about a couple of reissues now that I got, with starting with this one. TBone Walker and Plain Old Blues. This came out in 1982 in the UK on Charlie Records. There is no US version of this, and I was lucky enough to find some TBone Walker. I wonder how he would have felt, though, about his album being called Plain Old Blues, because he passed away, I believe, in the 70s, so this didn't come out until 82. I don't know if he would have cared for that. It doesn't really make sense either, because this is not plain old blues. He's more in a kind of a jazzy kind of blues. He's got the whole horns and kind of the more feel of a jazz. He kind of sings in more of a jazz, kind of a slower style, similar to like a Bessie Smith, who I love. But up until this point, I've been saying that a lot of the records I'm showing, oh man, I love this one. I absolutely love this one. This one's awesome. This one's okay. I really like his guitar sound. He's playing guitar. It sounds more like a rock and roll kind of sound, or what rock and roll would become. I guess in this era, it's probably more like jump blues. But his tone and his style of playing are much more like what you would hear later in rock and roll. It's like a pre-rock and roll guitar there. Like I said, his singing style is a little slower, a little more kind of musical, a little more jazz going on there. But I'm not a big fan of the horns and all that kind of thing. I would like to find some recordings of him, if there are any, where it's just him and the guitar and maybe the drummer and the bassist. I'm not a fan of all those horns. Kill the horns, man, kill the horns. I guess in this era it'd be more like that on the board. But yeah, so TBone Walker, Plain Old Blues, not Plain Old Blues though. But yeah, I really like the guitar playing, and glad to finally pick up some TBone Walker. Before this record, I did not have anything from the man, so this is kind of my introduction to him, and it's got a great essay on the back, so you can read all about the recordings. It tells you where they're from. Some of these, I guess, were previously unreleased up until this point. A couple of alternate versions on here, and quite a few tracks too, 14 tracks on here. And, it's an album from 1982, so it hasn't really been around a lot. It's in mint condition, so it sounded really great. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you're into more of like a jazzy kind of blues element, combining the two together. I'm much more into the downtown, but I always thought that jazz was more uptown, blues is more downtown. So I'm much more comfortable in the downtown. You can feel free to use that, by the way. I just made that up. But yeah, TBone Walker and Plain Old Blues. Finally got my hands on some TBone Walker. And the other reissue I recently acquired is this one from Muddy Waters, Electric Mud. Now, I've had an original of this for years and years and years, but my copy is in pretty sad shape. I don't mind some clicks and a pop here and there on records. They don't have to be pristine. In fact, sometimes that actually lends to a little bit of charm of listening to them. But my original copy of this is it's a little beyond that. In fact, it has a couple of places where it has a back skip, so you literally have to get up and and it's a scratch. It's not something that you can clean off or whatever. So, but yeah, so I went ahead and got the reissue of this, knowing full and well what I was getting into. This is well, actually, I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, because the original, when you open the gatefold, it has this nice little booklet kind of pages of, for some reason, Muddy Waters getting a haircut. And on the gatefold, that's all gone. This is just, on the reissue, it's all gone. It's just the gatefold. It still has that nice, awesome looking cobra there on the back in the barbershop, though. But yeah, so I'm going to keep my original for all the pictures inside, but I still have this reissue that I'll go to when I actually want to hear it. So it's kind of like one for the cover and one for the show. 3 to get ready. But yeah, Muddy Waters Electric Mud coming out in the late 60s here. There was also the Howlin' Wolf one, very similar, where a rock band, psych rock band, get together with him and just blast him out of the room with rock music that he's trying to sing the blues to. Howlin' Wolf, though, actually on the cover, it talks about, this is the new Howlin' Wolf album. Howlin' Wolf doesn't like it. I don't know how much Muddy Waters like this experience. But I remember the first time I heard it years ago, I was kind of like, what in the world? It's like the more I listen to it, though, the more I enjoy it. The more I kind of know what to expect, getting a little more into it, getting a little more at ease with it. But it is quite a shocking thing especially I believe when this was first out, probably for blues fans, to hear Muddy Waters and even Howlin' Wolf on the other album, backed up by just this loud, hard psych band that includes Pete Cozy on guitar and also members of the Rotary Connection as well, but from Chicago. So it's still Chicago blues in a way. But yeah, starts off with the I Just Want to Make Love to You, a completely different version of that. There's some, like that one, and Hoochie Coochie Man is on here as well, Manish Boy. So you do get blues classics like that from Muddy Waters, but they are completely redone and totally sound different. The Manish Boy is probably the weakest of those to me, because instead of the, which they could have made like really hard rock, it's kind of like a noodly type thing going on there. So some songs definitely work better than others. They do the Rolling Stones, Let's Spend the Night Together. Sounds like a completely different arrangement of that. First time I heard it took a while. You get like about a minute into the song and go, oh, wait, that's Let's Spend the Night Together. I mean, that's how different this thing is. It's All Right in side one. Which they keep doing the bass riff to the beginning of My Girl, like do 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 do, and I'm wondering, is this going anywhere? And sure enough, they end the song by just going into the music of My Girl from the Temptations. So some surprises on here that aren't listed anywhere in the titles, but it's quite a trip. The album, the way this sounds, Muddy Waters, I mean, I love, obviously, if you've seen my videos, you know that I absolutely love hard psych rock from the late 60s and early 70s. It's one of my top genres. And I love the blues. Muddy Waters is one of my favorite. I put him in my top 5 blues singers. Absolutely love Muddy Waters. A video you should check out, by the way, on YouTube is him in 1966. This is the pinnacle for me. This Canadian TV show where he's doing, I Got My Mojo Working. It is one of the premier, I mean, it sounds like rock. He is rocking the hell out. You should check that out. But Muddy Waters, one of my top 5 blues guys. But it's almost like ice cream, one of my favorites, with pizza, one of my favorites. Two great things that don't necessarily blend together all the time. So it reminds me of like watching one of those old movies from the late 60s where they've got the hippie thing going on and the trippy whatever, and the guy that's not used to this and not part of this scene is usually walking in through like some beaded curtains or something like that, looking around like, what in the world is going on? They got the light show going on and the people gyrating on the, all high and, on acid and whatever, and the music blasting and the guys walking around. Like, that's kind of what this album reminds me of. But like I said, the more I listen to it, the more I get into it. And I've heard it, like I said, for years. The more I like it. But it does, on some songs, sound more like, once it gets more into side 2, like Herbert Harper's Free Press. There's a song called that. It sounds almost like the band is competing with Muddy Waters instead of accompanying. Like he's belting out the blues and they're just cranking it up louder and louder and just getting more and more, guitar riffs just nonstop, just over the top, and they're just like, this is my album. No, this is my album. It kind of like it's competitive there, but there are some nice moments. Tenor sax in the song Tomcat with this nice repeating riff. You got to be really good at the tenor sax if I'm going to like it, because I usually don't like horns and saxophones and stuff like that. But Electric Mud, this is the reissue from, I think, last year, a couple of years ago, on white vinyl. To make up for the fact that it's not the white cover, there's 2 covers of this. You either get the black cover with the white text or the white cover with the black text. My original is the black cover with the white text too. So maybe someday I'll get just to have the whole thing, the whole experience. I'll get the the white cover or whatever. But yeah, just the more it's kind of shocking when you first hear this. Like, man, this band is just blasting out, and he is just belting out, and it's just so damn. It gets overwhelming sometimes, but a little bit getting used to. But I've grown to really, really, really like this album, so I had to get a really nice sounding reissue, and the reissue does sound pretty good. You do have to turn it up a little bit; it's not mastered as loud as the original. But yeah, Electric Mud from Muddy Waters. And so the final blues record wrapping this whole thing up is the Mantro Festival live in Switzerland with Albert King, Chico Hamilton, and Little Milton. Now, with that kind of lineup, you think this might be a double album? No, it's just one record. Came out in 1974. Starts off with Chico Hamilton and, a jazz song. It's got some horns in it. It ends with a drum solo. It's about 12 minutes long. And then we get to a couple of tunes from Little Milton. Now, this thing starts as he's your basic, just getting the crowd going, very exciting kind of modern blues sound with the electric guitar and everything. He's got a great voice. I'm not really familiar with Little Milton. More of like a soulful kind of, R&B kind of, they get the R with the B. And Albert King after that. And, it's Albert King. I mean, I've always loved Albert King. I got my, copy of Born Under a Bad Sign back in I think 94, 93, something like that, when it was reissued on CD. Had the CD, got the record years later, and played that thing over and over. I love the way it starts with Laundromat Blues. And, you've been meeting your man, baby, down at the local laundromat. I done got wise, and daddy ain't going for that. Every morning, you pick out an old blouse or two. I love blues lyrics like that. Can you imagine that happening? Like somebody's cheating on somebody, meeting him at the laundromat. So every day, they're just grab a couple shirts and head off to the laundromat. Like, okay, for the fourth time this week, gonna just wash a couple shirts at the laundromat. Nothing going on here. Anyway, that's enough about that album. That album's classic. You got to get Born Under a Bad Sign. Albert King's pretty cool here too. This is a live concert, and yeah, the thing is, it's too short. There's 3 different people here, and it's on one record, so it's kind of like a tiny little sampler. You get a little taste, just a little nibble of each one, but. Yeah, it just reminds me of how much I love live blues like that. You've got the electric guitar. They always end up with this kind of, build-up thing at the end and just bam, and the blues singing, the blues lyrics, the whole audience is into it. It's great. And it's my favorite kind of concert anymore as I get older. I'm pretty much done at this point with like rock stadium concerts. I know a lot of people my age still get excited about that kind of thing, and that's great. But I've been to so many of those over the years, and I've seen, so many bands, so many rock bands. I'm burnt out. A lot of them are past their prime now, way past their prime, and I'd rather just remember them how I saw them. And to me, at this point, there's nothing better than just going to I think I've mentioned this before in a video, so excuse me for repeating myself, but I think there's just nothing better at this point than being in Memphis on Beale Street and just walking into a random club and just seeing a great blues guy up there and a band, or maybe just a guy by himself just singing the blues, and everybody's into it, and it's a great night, great weather, great, doors open, music's flowing out, and that's my favorite kind of concert anymore. And by the way, don't go to Beale Street in Memphis on motorcycle night. May have talked about that before. I still can't believe they have Motorcycle Weekend on Beale Street in Memphis. Let's take something where the sound is the most important thing and put a bunch of Harleys there. What does that make? I mean, Harleys are great. Motorcycles are great. Absolutely. The two don't mix. You don't mix music with motorcycles. You don't up and down the street. Most bizarre thing, it's not the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, but it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. But anyway, that wraps up my Got the Blues videos, just taking all the blues records I've acquired recently, and instead of mixing them with the other records and doing the vinyl finds that way, I thought I'd put them all in a 2-part video, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what some of your favorite blues albums are. Like I said, these aren't necessarily my favorites of all time. Maybe I'll do that video at one point. These are just the ones I've acquired recently. But, needless to say, a lot of them are excellent. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Fithen, and hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.